Welcome to What Juices You, where we explore what energizes leaders and how that energy fuels performance, connection, and growth. I'm Brady Wilson, the founder of Juicing. Today, I'm excited to have Kevin Rice on the show. Kevin is a founder, investor, and leadership thinker focused on helping high-performing leaders scale companies without burning out themselves or their teams. This is going to be fascinating. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Brady, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about the conversation. I think just kind of our philosophy is on energy and maintaining your state and being present for your family and for your teams really aligns. So thank you for having me on.
Looking forward to it. Okay, going to start with a question I've been asking leaders for the last 20 years. What juices you? And I want to put a finer point on it for you, Kevin. That is, what juices you about helping ambitious leaders be present to those who matter most, especially when ambitious leaders can struggle with perfectionism? I need to be all things to all people. I need to do this right everywhere. And often presence and perfectionism, they don't always play that nicely together. So want to find out what role um, perfectionism has in the people that you're trying to help, and how you can help get them to that place where, yeah, it is actually, I got to do things right and I got to achieve things, but presence is actually one of my highest priorities. So how do you sustain your energy in the pursuit of all of that?
So I'd start by saying what juiced me for almost 15 years when I was building my company and my career was solely my career. I got
Yeah.
everything I really needed from that position. It challenged me. It gave me some competition where I was always competing for the next win, the next big deal. It gave me community and connection and relationships that really mattered. So my entire existence, all of my purpose was really tied up in my company, this organization that I was building. The problem with that is when you sell your company, you're kind of lost because all of that, all of your needs that were being sustained through this organization are no longer met. And you're kind of left with yourself and thinking, what do I do now? Who am I? Because my identity
Yeah.
was really
Right.
fused with my role in this organization. And so I was just left with myself as saying, okay, who am I now that I'm not the president and CMO of Hathway?
And Kevin, give people some context, because you're not the type of person, I don't think, who would get up on a mountain and crow like a rooster. But I just got to say, out of college, Hathway, you grew it to 42 million and 200 people. And so this is the type of thing that a younger leader can have a lot of strut and kind of walking tall and try to figure out, what is my identity that is actually sustainable and that will serve the world. A lot of people don't go that way after they sell an organization like that. You sold it to Bounteous. I would imagine that sale worked out well. So just give us a bit of context for that journey, if you will.
Yeah, so like you said, straight out of college, no real proper professional work experience. My best friend, who I met literally day one of being in the dorms at Cal Poly, his name's Jesse Dundon. Jesse and I started this company in our garage, and we had no idea where we were going. We had a little bit of illusions of grandeur, thinking we were going to start the next Facebook and,
Sure.
sell a unicorn in 3 years. No idea.
Hmm.
There was just a lot of naivety that actually probably being so naive at a young age allowed us to push forward into something that if we had a lot of the knowledge and experience and context, it might have been a lot more intimidating. But we Cal Poly's motto is learn by doing, and so
Okay.
we certainly learned through the school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
And from our garage with just the two of us, over the course of 13 years, we scaled it to about 250 employees. And as you said, we were over 40 million in revenue, and we eventually had a 9-figure exit. That was just like the most perfect match between our organization and the acquiring company, Bounteous. And so at that point, I kind of felt like, oh, this is the pinnacle of my career. I feel like I'm standing at a mountaintop.
Right.
But when the deal closed, it was just another Monday. And I don't know how to describe it because I was expecting celebration and joy and relief and all the things you would expect you feel. But I didn't. It was just it didn't land like that for me. Um, Through some introspection and a lot of like journaling and therapy and working with coaches, I kind of realized what had been going on was for the previous 2 years, I was redlining. I had a life that
I
was
see.
full of stress and pressure, both corporate
Yeah,
inflicted, right? The business was growing, but at the same time,
sure.
I had also become a single father, raising two very young children. My oldest son at the time was 3.5. My youngest son was 4 weeks old. And so I was also, raising kids with support from friends and family, but ultimately the burden was on me.
Yeah.
And then of course COVID happens, right? We have a global pandemic. So you just layer all of this in.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
spent 2020 and 2021 just like survival mode, fight or flight mode. Um,
Totally.
and what I found was my coping mechanism was to just really just shove all of that down, all the stress, all the pressure, just like shove it down, disconnect
Yep.
from it. And I can look at it jokingly today, but in the moment, like it was, it was like, I call it robot mode. And robot mode
Mhm.
is being in a very high performance, um, like level of performance, but
Yeah.
without actually experiencing it, without feeling the emotions, without feeling the connection to other people. And where that showed up for me was I kind of lost connection with myself and I lost connection with my kids. And so when I thought I was going to feel all this joy and celebration, because I had been in robot mode for so long, if you don't feel the lows by design, you also don't get to feel the highs. And
Yep.
so, that's where I was left of trying to figure out like, how do I pick up the pieces and how do I, rebuild myself after my identity is no longer tied to this organization.
It is so counterintuitive that you have a win like that and an incredible accomplishment that a lot of young entrepreneurs would just be dreaming about. And the first thing need to do is get some therapy,
Right?
right? And do a
Not
bunch of
just therapy,
journaling.
like I was working with personal development coaches, therapists, codependence counselors. I was going to Tony Robbins seminars. I was doing
Yeah.
all the things.
Yep. It's really wild. Um,
not
it's
not exactly how I thought my retirement years would play out. I ended up doing more work on myself than I had been doing in my career.
totally. Uh, so Juice is an energy company, and so we know that there's an energy that's released in the pursuit of a goal, and there is an energy that's released in the accomplishment of a goal. And one of those has a much longer shelf life than the other, right?
Mm.
So as soon as you run that marathon that you've been dreaming about for 5 years and training for or whatever, it took a lot of energy and released a lot of energy actually pursuing that. It's on the day that you finish it, there's a half-life to the accomplishment energy. It's like 3 days maximum, right? And then you're already thinking about what is that next thing that I've got to do. But it sounds like you got to that point and you saw it. And yeah, the achievement energy did not sustain you for very long.
Yeah, because there was such a deficit that had grown in terms of my relationship with myself and my relationship with my kids that
Yeah.
I realized I needed to take the time to kind of pay back what I had been sacrificing of myself and my family for this career success that I so desperately wanted.
The tax there, Kevin, you had to, there was a mounting tax bill that was coming to you. The robot, life. I can't feel the lows, thank goodness, but neither can I feel the highs. That's one tax. Not the sense of connection with my kids. I got to figure out what my identity. There's a lot of tax there. Uh, what were some of the other taxes, if you don't mind me asking, that were associated with that rapid climb to such a massive pinnacle?
So it's funny you mentioned that. am working on writing a book, and I've got like a manuscript, and there's a long process before I'll be able to get it published. But the first chapter and the first like sub headline is the corporate tax on presence. So you kind of nailed it right there.
Okay.
For
Okay.
me, the tax was on me being present in my life. And an example would be I would come home after a 12, 13-hour day of work, and I'd be taking care of my kids. I'd be putting them through bedtime routine, reading them a book. And the entire time I was reading them a book, I was actually planning my next meeting for the next
Yeah.
day, or I
Yeah.
was going rehearsing a pitch. And so I was never fully present in that, or at least for those couple of years, I wasn't present in the relationship with my children. And at the time, I thought I was brilliant. I thought I was multitasking. I was getting two things done at once. I thought I was
Totally.
so smart.
You're
But
nailing it.
kids are really intuitive and energetically. They knew I wasn't actually emotionally and mentally present, even though I was physically there in their bed reading them a book.
Yeah. Kevin, I have a question for you. And that is, your kids now are probably like 9 and 6 or something like that, or what
Mhm.
they're yeah.
Good math. Yeah.
Yeah. So how many defining moments do you think you will have with your kids before they launch off to university or wherever they launch off to? When they leave your house, and hopefully they do, and they're not there when they're 35 years old, but when they leave, how many defining moments do you think you will have had with your kids?
Well, I'm already starting to see it, right? My 9-year-old's getting into a place where his friends are almost becoming more important than me. I feel like I have a couple more years left where family time is really important to him, but I can see the writing on the wall that within the next couple of years, he's not going to want to hang out with me. He's going to want to hang out with his friends. And then after that, yeah, it's another 6 years before he goes off to college and starts building his own life. So the shift I made a couple of years ago was because I wanted to make sure that I was able to pass down the values that I learned throughout my
Yeah.
life and teach them skills that will help support them in whatever they want to pursue. And so between now and then, my goal is to have as many of those like core memories created, whether it's traveling or just, our kind of consistent routines and rituals that we do every week throughout the course of the week. But my goal is to, have as many of those as possible, because I know that time is fleeting, and before I know it, they're going to be out of the house.
Yeah. I've got 4 kids. My oldest is 44, and my youngest is 38. And when they were growing up, I was super, super intent on watching for those defining moments. I thought I would have hundreds.
Mm,
I really did. Because, I mean, I have them for 18 years, right? And it's not like I'm not watching for those moments. I figure I had about 10 with each of my kids.
mm,
And it sounds weird. Like, it's like, Brady, did you not have more? But actually ask yourself, how many defining moments did you have with your mom and dad, right?
sure.
I mean, one of those moments that you look back and it marks you, and you go, I will never forget this moment that I had with my dad. It's like, no, there aren't 100 of them. And so I think for me, that's why the work that you're doing is so important. If there's only 10, I want to be present when they happen because I can
Yeah.
miss them.
Well, I also have a 2-year-old with my fiance, and I learned so much from my first two children that things are so different with my third.
Yeah.
And when I sold my company, I was kind of thrust into being a full time parent. And I didn't realize how much went into that role. It's really
Sure.
easy to be a parent, it's really hard to be a good parent.
Yeah.
And when I started going down that path, I realized there's so much to learn here. And I felt a little out of sorts, a little unequipped, because I had spent my whole life building career and business and
Hmm.
commercial strategy and leadership and sales. And the solution that I found was actually taking all of that curriculum that I learned in my career and applying it to my family. And so I have started
Wow.
with my oldest kids, teaching them about core values, family values, creating a family operating system, being really intentional about routines and rituals that celebrate, their effort. And so I started writing this book called The Executive's Guide to Parenting. And it's all about how you take business frameworks like flywheels and maturity models and like
Yeah.
leadership principles of authentic authority versus assigned authority, and how you translate them in a more heart-centered way, but into your personal life and family life. And that's really kind of what, to back to the theme of the podcast, that's like what juices me today, is trying to help inspire other professionals who have had similar experiences as me, to show up more intentionally, both in their careers and in their personal life.
The fact that you've got perfect bridging language that they, number one, appreciate and can see the value of in their workplace, and then parlay that right into when they walk into their home. That's got to be. Have you tested it yet? I mean, I'm assuming you've tested the ideas. The book is yet to come, but does it land well for executives and CEOs?
I guess we'll find out, because I really wrote the book for myself, circa 2020.
Yeah,
And that was my audience. I just wrote it to me. And now
yeah.
my assumption is there's a lot of other people who struggle with the same things of pressure and being present and intentional, because it feels like kind of a universal struggle. As I've done the podcast, I've interviewed multiple dozens of executives who have had the same experiences, and it's not easy. And so, you know, the podcast isn't necessarily about fixing the problem. It certainly shares experiences and lessons learned, but it's also just about creating a
Yeah.
forum so that this topic is not kind of hidden in the back seat, or just given lip service as it typically is within a corporate setting.
You said something about family operating system. I mean, you talked about rituals and you talked about ensuring that people's efforts are valued and appreciated. But could you talk a little bit about the family operating system? That was intriguing to me, if
Sure.
that's okay. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share a little bit about the book. To your previous question, I have no idea if it's going to land with anybody else, but we'll see.
yeah,
Um, the family operating system is kind of designed to take a framework and apply it to your family life, not to create rigidity or too much structure, but to give you
yeah,
enough structure to have more freedom. Structure can actually lead to more flexibility when
yeah,
applied properly.
yeah.
And so within this chapter, we talk about, creating a mission, a vision, values for your family. I've actually got like a poster back here. I'll show you real quick.
Yeah.
This is the first time anybody's seeing it, so I'll put it up here. We
Ah,
like designed a fun little poster for your
yeah, yeah,
mission,
yeah. Oh
vision,
my
family, and
goodness.
values. And so we're just kind of, playing around with this, giving it away. But for
Oh
me, it was
man.
getting really clear on what's the vision for my family, what's the mission, what are the values that I hope my children will inherit. I go as far as writing job descriptions for parents and kids, because when you're clear on a child's job description, it allows you to just be a lot more flexible and a lot more understanding that their job is not to comply with you. Their job is to test boundaries. Their job is
Mhm.
to learn and to, grow into their own person. And so it's easy to think like, my kids aren't listening, they don't respect me. But when you have their job description in front of you, it reminds you like that is literally their job as kids. And your job is to provide safety and mentor and guide, as they go through this journey of life. And so, there's job descriptions, there's, like rituals, routines, protocols, like everything that I would have done in my career, like stand-ups, right? I apply the concept of a stand-up every night when I'm doing reading books with my kids. We talk about, what was one hard thing? What was one fun thing that happened today? And we just have these like consistent routines and rituals that I honestly think they will probably remember more when they're older than
Yeah.
any one big vacation.
What's the name of the book?
The book's working title is The Executive's Guide to Parenting.
Okay. I want to keep my eyes open for that, and our listeners as well. Thank you, Kevin. So let's just take your 9.5 or whatever year old, um, entering a world where you sure don't want to be an accountant or a junior legal assistant in a law firm, or a lot of things that AI can just handily do. And what I hear that I really love is you're teaching your kids not only it's not only okay, you're not only permitted to push the boundaries and challenge what doesn't make sense, but I love that and I reward that. I would imagine that sensitizing them to, the real value in the workforce 10 years from now, when you enter into it, or 12 years from now, is problem solving, is creativity, is innovation, is the ability to stand in the midst of tension where everybody else is going binary and you're actually able to stay in the question longer for generative solutions. But give me your handful of things that you are desperately trying to inculcate in your kids, in a world where what's valued today, or at least 10 years ago, is going to be completely different 10 years from now.
Yeah, you mentioned boundaries and allowing kids to push back. I think about the corporate kind of parallel. In a corporate setting, if you are communicating a strategy and people are, contributing their ideas, maybe challenging your idea, as an executive, you wouldn't turn around and just say, "This is what we're doing because I said so." But
Well,
as a
yeah,
parent, those words,
some executives would, but
no, a great leader wouldn't, right? They'd bring the
no,
team
that's right.
along, they'd allow discourse, and maybe they decide this is still what we're doing, but you've all been heard.
Sure.
And yet, in a family setting, I have heard dozens of parents respond to the question of why with, "Because I said so."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why is that okay or not okay in a corporate setting as a leader? Why is that okay in a household setting with your children? So, anyways, that's something I often think about is like, I want them to ask why. I want them to challenge me and ask questions. It is taxing. It's tiring. It's more
Yes.
difficult,
Yes.
but it's worth it because it's teaching them to, think for themselves, critical thinking. And so, to
Yeah.
your question about what matters in the future, I would take you said problem solving. I would say like resourcefulness, right? Because
Hmm.
there is so much more resources today than there were 15 years ago when I was starting in my career. Um, the tools available is the best time in history to start a company because you have so many tools available to you. Now that said,
Hmm.
is like AI can't replace a lot of things, right? Hard work, grit, resourcefulness, creativity, problem solving. Like these are all things that the next generation is going to need to learn because it's not as much about learning history and theories or being able to do research. All that can be done with a keyboard stroke. But
Totally.
how you apply it and how you communicate it, like I've seen people present AI generated thinking and they really struggle because it's not their thoughts. And so they're in front of a room, they've got this amazing report, but they can't present the idea because it actually like they never embodied it. It never became
Right.
their idea. They're just trying to recite something else that AI generated. So that's another thing is being able to like communicate your ideas in a way that lands with others. Super
Yes.
important.
And I wonder whether the pattern recognition piece too, like especially when we have a massive sea of data coming at us and it's available everywhere, but being able to make the value adding connections and kind of the recombination of knowledge that moves something forward, that could be another, maybe that's under critical thinking.
Yeah, like connecting the dots. I always
Yeah.
struggled to explain why we were successful. I mean, we certainly had like commercial strategy and we had go to market and we had things that we had done that made us really unique in the market and helped us grow our company. But we always found ways to connect dots that I found it really hard to teach. And that's a skill that I think, as you mentioned, like will be very important in the future of being able to see all of the research, the ideas, the approaches, and figure out how to connect dots in a way that sets your company up to be different or successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Kevin, are you gentle with yourself? It feels to me like you are, that you're a type of person who wouldn't speak to yourself in a way that, oh, I would never say that to anybody else, but that language that can be harsh and editorial to ourselves, which we would never allow to anyone. It feels to me like you're gentle with yourself, that you're not under a strict perfectionism code. Is that true? Tell me about yourself.
I would say it's true today, except when I'm playing basketball. I'm pretty harsh on myself, being older and trying to play with these young kids. Um, Up through while I was growing my company, I think I was very critical. And I think as a high achiever, um, we're taught from a very young age that your performance equals your value or your self
Yes.
worth. We're taught from
Yes.
grades, we're taught in sports. And then when we get into our career, it's your title, your how many direct reports you have, your compensation package. All of these external measures tell you whether or not
Yeah.
you're good enough. And so in my career, I was always looking for that external validation. And I got it, right? Like a company is just a engine for external validation. You
Yeah.
win a new client, everybody cheers. You help solve problems, people tell you that supported them. Like you just get all of this external validation. But then when you don't have that vehicle anymore, you're kind of left again by yourself trying to figure out, like, why am I not just feeling good enough for the person I am, despite or without these external like metrics to prove to myself that I am enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It. I have had periods of my life where the need for that external validation and affirmation uh, I was so addicted to it that if it wasn't coming at the right pace or the right volume, then I would actually manufacture the situation in which I could get it.
Mm.
Which, I look at today and go, oh my God, but that was true.
Sure. So like
And
an example would be like taking a client that maybe is not right for you, but you needed a win to satisfy
totally,
that need.
totally. Yeah. And I would say that, so I just wrote a book last year, finished it. It took about 7 years, which whether that's good or bad, but anyway, that's what it was. And it's called Feeling Enough. And so in a world that says be more, do more, have more, is there some sort of impulse that you can locate that says enough? And so you're in that place now where you have the streams and rivers of external validation are not coming to you like they were, and yet you're able to somehow, the locus of enoughness is, it feels like it's more internal, like when I talk to you anyway, rather than it needs to be external. And is that accurate?
Yeah, I think developing self-esteem comes from making commitments to yourself and following through on those commitments. For me, they can be health related. So I work out every day. I actually eat the same food every day as part of a dietary, like as a eating regimen, which
Yep.
like foodies just can't stand the idea of eating the same thing every day, but it works
I'm
great for
sure.
me.
No. Yeah.
Um, and uh, it's also being the parent that I want to be. So firm, fair, kind. It's being the partner that I want to be, who can show up and be a great partner for my fiance. It's some of the like just kind of standards I want to live by. So, I try to read a book every month. I try to meditate every day. When I set those commitments to myself and I follow through with them, I found that's what builds self-esteem. And that's what helps me feel like I am enough, without needing somebody else to say it. And now that I'm not in a corporate environment and I'm mostly at home raising kids, doing the podcast, doing a little bit of advisory work, there's no vehicle. Like my kids don't go, "Hey dad, you did a really good job today connecting with us," or "Hey dad, you yelled at me, but you did a really good repair and I feel better and safe and secure as a
Yeah,
result of it." Like I
yeah,
don't get any of
yeah.
that external validation. And so it really needs to come from an internal, kind of heart-centered felt place.
In the being present, there are all sorts of different levers that we have at our disposal. And I mean, meditation and mindfulness and your energy level. You work out at 4:30 every morning. There's all sorts of things. There's also that other part of us that isn't very quantifiable, and that's the spirit. And some people would take a look at that as being very woo woo, but there's, whether you call it soul or spirit or whatever, there is an other dimension, and I would look at that as a spiritual element of my life, and that has a lot to do with the presence that I bring. Does spirituality play at all for you in terms of your ability to be present the way that you want to be as a dad, as a fiance?
Yeah, I would say one of the ways it materializes is that I have a very strong belief that everything that is happening in life, the challenges, the struggles, the pitfalls, like that's all happening for me, for my benefit to grow. And there have been so many moments in my life where just everything fell out from underneath me. I thought like my world was collapsing. But now in retrospect, I realized that was the best thing that could have ever happened. I'll give you one example from my professional world was at the end of 2020, we almost sold my company, but the deal fell through with like hours left before we were supposed to sign definitive documents. And I thought,
Oh
oh, this
my
is
goodness.
terrible. It was actually on December 23rd. We were supposed to sign paperwork on December 24th, and it was like Christmas present celebration. That
Oh
deal fell
my
through for a
goodness.
lot of reasons. But looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because the subsequent year, we doubled our revenue, we doubled our EBITDA, or not quite double, but we increased our EBITDA. And we ended up selling for like 4 times more than what we would have sold for just 12 months earlier. So it's like life is happening for you. And if you look at it and try to find the lessons, anything that feels like a failure or a loss or something that wasn't fair to you, you can learn something from it. And if you do, you get to grow through it instead of just go through it.
Kevin, that is such a unique vantage point, because I think there are a lot of people who see life as the adversary, as
Mhm.
the opponent, as the enemy. And then so, yeah, what it's going to give me is reversals and setbacks and suffering and pain and constraint. And you're going, yeah, there will be suffering, there will be setbacks, but that doesn't mean that life is not my partner. My life is my partner, and it's for me. That is a very beautiful and unique way of seeing life, I would say.
Yeah, I think that kind of, answer, like going back to your spirituality question, is like, I think we all kind of predestined what we are, like the major life circumstances that we come into this life with. And some people, take an easy route for this existence. Some people take a harder route. But ultimately, like we're here to grow, we're here to learn, we're here to love. And life just kind of has a way of leading you there. And it might not always be easy, but if you can, learn through it, then that's what it's all about.
Your story has a lot more chapters to come, but it's a fascinating story up till today. And how it's going to develop with your kids, with your relationship with your fiance, what you're doing with CEOs and ABCs, your podcast. And I want to make sure my listeners know about that, to check out your podcast, CEOs and ABCs. Do you want to say anything about that, Kevin?
Yeah, you can, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. The website is ceosandabcs.com. Every week I interview a Fortune 500 executive, and they've really just been amazing at opening up and being incredibly candid about what life looks like behind the scenes, what you can't understand by looking at their resume or their LinkedIn profile, and just kind of creating a forum to talk about the realities and stress, the ups and downs that come with, building a business or being a corporate executive, and, the lessons learned and how to show up and be more intentional. And I think that's probably, if you look at the kind of through line, the consistent red thread from every episode is no executives are going to say, if you are ambitious, you're going to have a 9 to 5 that perfectly balances career and family and sleep time. It just doesn't exist. It's not reality. It's certainly, there's some examples of people who have that happen, but it's not the common path. What you can do is be more intentional. And so imagine if you took the same amount of planning, the same amount of energetic like planning that you put into your career, and applied that to your family life. You might only have an hour a day with your kids, but make that hour intentional. Go into it with a plan. How are you going to spend time together in a way that teaches them values, builds your connection, helps them learn life skills? Maybe it's just build connection, right? Maybe today we're going to spend an hour together and it's all about just being close to each other and helping them feel safe. But when I used to just kind of walk through the front door, I would still be in work mode and I wouldn't have a plan. And we'd end up just kind of squandering the evening or squandering the weekend. And the weekend would be over. And I'm like, I don't really know that we moved our relationship forward, because I was still constantly just thinking about work. And so today, one of the things I try to do is when my workday is finished, I've got like a re-entry ritual kind of routine that I do that puts me into the mental headspace of, now it's time to be dad. Now it's time to be
Right.
present. I'm going to set my phone away. I'm going to put it on do not disturb, and I'm going to be here with a plan. It might be like, we're going to build Legos together, but you're going to have one role, you're going to have another role, and we're going to practice teamwork through that exercise. It might be a hike where we're just going to go a little bit further this time than we did last time. And we're going to talk about, work ethic and grit and overcoming adversity. So just having more intention going into the time that you do have with your kids, like that's the message that virtually every executive has shared that they've learned throughout their career and life as a parent.
I think that's incredibly hope giving because I do think there are a lot of executives who go, yeah, I just have to make this sacrifice for a certain number of years or even decades, and then I can start investing in my kids. But this is just what it is right now. And I think what you're saying, it's not that binary, that you can be a person who has significant ambitions and aspirations, and that with that intentionality and with some good planning, you can actually do both.
Yeah, I think that's what it all comes down to, is presence and intention.
Hmm. Well, executive guides to parenting and the CEOs and ABC's podcast. Any other things that people? I mean, you're you're investing in Theorem One, right? Is
Uh,
there anything you want to say about that, or?
Sure. Yeah. So post, corporate life, I've been investing in startups, and it's been a really like passion fueled kind of project.
Mhm.
I've invested in 4 companies, uh, typically in the AI space, companies that
Mhm.
are using AI in unique and different ways. So I've been looking for companies that really are in that space of innovation, but not just in the way of like, this sounds like something that's cool, but using AI in a way that like fundamentally changes how a company interacts with their customers or how they do business. And I'll give you one example. I'm an investor in a company called In-Store AI. And what they do is they take microphones and they put them at cash registers, and they record the conversation between store associates in a retail environment and the customers. They take all of that rich conversational data that typically used to be just a black box for retailers. They put it into a large language model, and then they extract really interesting insights for marketing, operations, human resources, supply chain, and they can tell retailers at the unit level where their organization, where things are falling short, where things can improve. Like, are your associates telling your customers about your loyalty program? Are customers constantly complaining about a bathroom that's dirty or unclean? So when I saw this company, I was like, that is so interesting. I've never considered this as a potential use case, because this was a problem that every one of my old clients used to have. And now today, using technology, like, we get visibility into that, guest to associate interaction. And to me, that's real innovation versus just, doing something cool.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you probably have a lineup of a brand new innovator slash and entrepreneurs who are going to be tugging on your sleeve after this podcast going, invest in me, invest in me. That's wonderful. I hope you have that beautiful problem. Well, I just want to say thank you. I know that your podcasts are, around 40 minutes. We've already gone past that. So I didn't want to keep you super long, but thank you for giving the world a really beautiful taste of your life. And I know people are going to love this episode. So thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you for having me. It was a very enjoyable conversation. Thank you.
You're so welcome.